Okay, so today I'm going to be reviewing this book, Edgedancer by Brandon Sanderson. This is a Cosmere Universe novella. Before I move on to the review, in case there's anyone out there watching this video that doesn't know what the Cosmere Universe is, I'm just going to take a very quick moment here to explain. Brandon Sanderson, whose name is there, just have to look for it. Brandon Sanderson is an author of many, multiple series that he has written so far, and there's many more apparently that he plans on bringing out. All of the mini-series that he has written that are fantasy series, they all somehow link together on a timeline, and that timeline collectively is known as the Cosmere Universe. All of the books on this shelf that you can see are all Cosmere Universe books. These three books, 1, 2, 3, that you see, they are Mistborn Era 1, 1, 2, 3. There is Mistborn Era 2, 1, 2, 3. There is the Stormlight Archives. Then you have other books like Warbreaker, which is a standalone, Elantris, which is a standalone. And then what you start getting, aside from other series that are also in the Cosmere Universe, but at least up to where I've read with the main books, you also get novellas that kind of go in between the books. So, for example, we have The Emperor's Soul that goes after Elantris. And then you have Mistborn Secret History that goes after the final book in Mistborn Era 1, The Hero of Ages, and so on and so forth we go. This book, Edgedancer, is no exception. It is also a novella, and this book actually goes in there after the second book in the Stormlight Archive series. So let's get on to discussing this book now. So, Edgedancer by Brandon Sanderson. I'm going to tell you what the genre is of this book, as well as the age rating, and then I'm kind of going to discuss a little more about that, because I have things to say in the spoiler-free section after we've done the stats. But this book is marketed as an adult fantasy. I disagree with that, but we'll get to that in a moment. It is marketed as an adult fantasy. And I ended up giving this book 3 stars. Okay, so 3 stars is actually the lowest rating that I have given, I believe, yes, that I have given any Cosmere book, whether it be novella or standard book that I've read so far in the Cosmere universe. So when you compare it to the fact that there are 5 stars that you can use with your ratings, 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5, on that scale, this is an average book. Didn't love it, didn't hate it, thought it was fine. On a Sanderson scale, as far as his Cosmere works and the way I've rated, it's on par with the lowest books that I've rated in Sanderson's Cosmere universe, and I'll explain why. First of all, I'm just going to read the blurb on the back to tell you if the book lives up to the blurb promise, the premise's promise, or not. And it says, 3 years ago, Lift asked a goddess to stop her from growing older. A wish she believed was granted. That's the first sentence. No, that does not happen in this book. It says in the blurb that it happened 3 years ago. That's great. That did not happen in this book. Now, the barely teenage nascent night writer finds that time stands still for no one. Yeah, okay. But it's a bit vague, though. The young Azish emperor may have granted her safe haven from the executioner, known only as darkness, but instead court life is slowly suffocating the free-spirited Lift. Yes, this is true. However, mentionings of the court that the emperor lives in is the only thing we get to see of the court and the emperor, because this book opens up with her having left there. So when she hears that darkness is relentlessly hunting people like her with budding powers, she can't help being drawn to help them. She can't help being drawn to help them. That sentence could have been written a whole lot better, but anyway. His hunting ground lies in Yedor, where the downtrodden have no champion, and Lift knows if she does not step up to aid them, no one will. My goodness, I'm sorry, but I could do a much better blurb than that. I can't deny that the blurb is right. I just think that it could have been so much better than that. Okay, I'm going to give you my premise now. So my premise of this book is that we are following Lift. Lift is a character that we were introduced to either in book 1 or book 2 of the Stormlight Archives. I'm going to say book 2 since this goes between book 2 and book 3. But anyway, Lift is a side character in the Stormlight Archives. In this book, we focus on her. We don't know much about Lift in the Stormlight Archives, but in this book we do learn a lot about her. Basically, Lift is someone who's not even a teenager yet. We'll get to that rating chat that I want to have with you guys in a moment, but she's not a teenager yet she has magical abilities, and she refers to these magical abilities as awesomeness. So when she turns on her awesomeness, she can do certain things, but when her awesomeness is not working, then there are issues. Lift has just run away from safety and, the safe haven of a temple with an emperor who is taking care of her and looking after her, and she just ran away. And so we are following her as she goes on a journey to find a being known as Darkness. I think I'll just leave it there. Like, there are certain things going on with Darkness, and Lift wants to work out what's going on. So she sets out on a journey to find Darkness, and then things happen from there. So, okay, now I'm going to talk to you about the age rating of this book. So this book is marketed as an adult fantasy. Let's quickly jump on the genre. The genre is 100% correct. This is a fantasy book. If anything, if you want to get technical, it is a high fantasy. High fantasy fantasies are books that are set in worlds created by the author. Low fantasy books are books that are written by an author, but the world is set in our own world. An example of this, low fantasy, is Harry Potter. High fantasy, anything Sanderson, really. My issue is with the age rating. This is marketed as an adult book, and I completely disagree with it being an adult book. It is a singular perspective. We are only following the perspective of Lift. Lift is not even a teenager yet. Lift is incredibly immature and has a ton of audacity to do a lot of different things. She's very audacious in the way she holds herself. And that makes this book come across as immature in my mind. Now, I'm going to explain why. If you've read all of these books, or even some of these books, and you're thinking, I wonder how I'll go with this one, just let me tell you that all of these books are, with the age rating, rated as adult books, and that makes sense. Now, some people contest that the First Era of Mistborn, these 3 books right here, could be young adult, but I'm going to say they're adult because they're epic fantasies. So, and the majority of the main characters are adults. With this one, we have one main character, and that one main character isn't even a teenager yet, and everything about her screams that fact. Okay. She's very immature. So, to give you an example, Lift is asked if she will do something, and she ends up saying, yes, I will do it if you give me pancakes, which is fine, and it's adorable, but don't tell me this is an adult book, because that's not what necessarily an adult would do. I mean, if an adult was starving, they might ask for food, but not specifically for pancakes. And yeah, the fact that Lift calls her power awesomeness, where we've learned so many different things about, what the magical abilities are, what any person who has a magical ability is called in every mini-series, because these books have hard magic systems. Every single one of the books that I've read so far, up until this one, the magic system in these Cosmic Universe books, it's a very hard magic system. And what that means is everything is explained, from what the ability or abilities are that the being has, what they are called, what the extent of those abilities can and cannot do, and so on and so forth. So we know all that stuff. Lift calls her power awesomeness. It's a bit immature for me. Look, honestly, my thought is this. I think this book is fine. I just think it took a lot for me to get on board with the fact that it is marketed as an adult book, but it comes across as a middle grade book. It really does. And Brandon Sanderson, all the books I've read of Brandon Sanderson's, none of them are middle grades. all of these books in the Cosmere universe are adult books, and Brandon Sanderson has also written some sci-fi books. So we got these two, and then we've also got these three, which you can't really see a lot of, but 1, 2, 3. They are sci-fi books, and they are young adult. They're YA. So this is the first book that I've walked away from that's a Brandon Sanderson book thinking it's a middle grade. I didn't think Brandon Sanderson wrote middle grade. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just saying from what I've read, he hasn't yet. So to me, it's false advertising that this is an adult book, because I could give this to a child who can read, and I don't think they would have any issues with it, whether it is reading the words on the page or whether it is dealing with whatever comes up in the plot. There is nothing in this book that I think would be a trigger warning to children or anything like that. It just comes across as a middle grade book. In saying that, is the plot okay? Yes, I think it is. If I'm to look at it objectively, it's a good book. Should you read it? If you want to. Now, if I look at it subjectively, did I enjoy this book? Not really. I think the climax is done really well, and I appreciated what came out of the climax. In saying that, everything that we go through for the first 3 quarters of this book, the only thing that I enjoyed in the first 3 quarters of this book was Brandon Sanderson's humor. I've gotten used to how his humor works in books, and I still love his humor in this book. But as far as the plot was concerned, I was just really thrown off by the fact that this is not an adult book. It's a middle grade. And it just, I don't know, I have read more Sanderson books than I've read by any other author ever, by a long shot. And it just threw me off. But if you've read this book, let me know if that threw you off or not. Look, I'm starting to realize that not all of Brandon Sanderson's novellas for the Cosmere universe are books that I love. In saying that, most of the main books in the Cosmere universe I do love. But with the novellas, they're really hit and miss with me. Some of them I love, some of them I don't love, and some of them are just okay. You know, I don't love or hate them. So with this one, I have to say for the majority of the book, I don't like it. No. I feel it comes across as way too immature. I feel it's such a young read for Sanderson, especially if you want to consider the fact that this novella fits in with Stormlight Archives. Stormlight Archives is definitely an adult book. You know, whether the themes of Stormlight Archive are adult or not, which they are, the least amount of pages for any of those books is book 1 in the Stormlight Archives, which is 1,000 pages. So it's definitely, just based on page count, it is an adult book, because can you imagine giving a small child a 1,000 page, like, the idea of that just, and I loved reading as a kid, but I can't imagine anyone giving me a 1,000 page book when I was a little kid. But anyway, this just didn't work for me. I'm sorry, what can I say? And I want to be honest with you guys. I love most of the Sanderson stuff that I read, but I've always said at the same time, if I don't love something that Brandon Sanderson has written, I will be honest and I'll let you know. I didn't love this. So, you know, what can I say? In saying that, I'm glad I have the physical book, because I want to own as many physical versions of Brandon Sanderson books as I can. And I just found out recently, by attempting to put this into the shelf, that it doesn't fit here. So I've actually I'm filled to capacity in this shelf. You can't see anything past this book, but I have 2 books, 3 actually, there. So they take up what you can't see in the bookshelf. But yeah, I'm going to have to start another Sanderson bookshelf somehow, unless I just kind of put it on the top. But yeah, I don't like how that looks. But either way, this has been one random review. So I hope you enjoyed it. It's just spoiler free. But look, the questions become, is it essential for you to read this book before going into Oathbringer, which is book 3, because this is set between book 2 and 3. So is it essential to read this before Oathbringer? My answer is no. You can definitely read all 3 main books in the Stormlight Archives without reading this one, and you'll be fine. For me, I just feel that this is like a side quest, if you will. So while we're following everyone over here, although with Stormlight Archives, everyone's kind of here, everywhere. But for example, while we're following everyone over here for the main story, the main books in the series. With Edgedancer, it's like we just have someone over here doing something. And it's a short book too. So the total amount of pages for this book, yeah, it's around the 250 page mark, somewhere around there. So anyway, those are my thoughts on Edgedancer. Have you read this book? What do you think? Agree with me or disagree? Let me know in the comments below. And if you do pick up this book based on my recommendation, if you do, well done. And yay, because I'm glad that that goes to show that I may not recommend a book, but you still want to read it. So that makes me happy because we're all, you know, different as far as readers are concerned, so I love that. Let me know in the comments below. But that is where I am going to leave it. I definitely, in case you're wondering, and I'm just doing this because it's Brandon Sanderson, I definitely do want to continue on with my Sanderson reads. So having read this book now, this is the second book that I read in May for this month. I've read this book, so I'm not reading any more Sanderson Cosmere works in May, but in June, just to give you guys a heads up, I'm finally reading this one, White Sand. This took me a long time to find a physical copy of this book that wasn't outrageously to the $200 or $300 mark expensive. So I finally found one that was reasonably priced, and I'm so happy that I have this, and I'll be reading this in June. But as for the novella that I read this month, Edgedancer, just not a fan. But that is where I am going to leave it, letting you guys go peace, blessings, and so much love. I post videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and I'll see you again soon. Mwah! Thank you so much for watching, and happy reading!